Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to Deliver It. This is an Agile Product Owners Podcast. My name is Cory Bryan, and her name is Kim Adrikaitis.
That was a very robust greeting.
You like that?
We were just talking about how awake we were.
Yes.
I think that
you think that woke some people up?
Completely proves how awake we are.
Well, you got to wake up. I mean, come on.
It's podcast day.
It is podcast day. I've been looking forward to this all day, and I'm very glad it's here. So.
I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Since the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I win.
It's true. All right, you do win. It's not a contest, Kim.
Everything's a contest, Cory.
Everything's a contest.
It's all a contest.
Well, what is going on in Kimberly land?
Big changes.
Yeah?
Changes.
There may be a license issue if you keep singing.
You know that song, though, right?
Yes, I know that song.
Awesome. So, at my office, I've been on the same project and team for well over a year. And recently, another product owner has been promoted. So management has decided to plug me into her old spot.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is a very large team. I think there's, 3 QAs and 6 or 7 developers. So it's a nice large team.
Good.
And completely unknown project. I don't know anything about this project.
Yeah.
So I'm transitioning and, I initiated a private retrospective with just myself.
Just you?
Me, myself, and I.
Good.
And the reason I wanted to do that was just to kind of touch base and say, how did the last project go? Now that I'm on a new one, what should I do differently? What went well? The basic retrospective items. So looking back in my retrospective, I want to share this with you because I think it's really important.
Okay.
I realized that I should have listened to my intuition more carefully.
What do you mean?
So I think in my deepest core, I didn't exactly agree with the direction the project was going, but I wasn't able to pinpoint why, if that makes sense. So I wasn't able to intelligently challenge the decisions that were being made. Okay. So instead of investigating and spending the time to really listen to what my intuition was telling me, I just kind of gave in. And I'm not proud of that. And I think it's really important for me to really listen to my intuition because now looking back, I was right, but I couldn't, I was right, but I couldn't tell anybody I was right because they didn't understand what I was talking about. And I can't just say, I know it's true because my heart tells me it's true.
Yeah.
They'd be like, Shh.
There's a lot of gut feeling that you have to have in this role and doing this type of job to go, you know what? I know that this is the data and I know this is this and I know this is what they said and I know this is what they got. It doesn't feel right.
It didn't feel right.
Yeah. So how can we fix that? What can we do to do that? That's the type of things you talk about as you go. So, yeah, that's definitely a big thing for me is to do that same thing.
Yeah. So I learned that, you're always learning things about yourself.
Absolutely.
So I learned that about myself. So I'm going to start paying attention because my intuition, I totally listen to it in my personal life. If my butt, if my butt says don't go there, I don't go there. Well, I listen to my butt.
Listen to the butt. It's a little weird.
I was actually meant to say my gut. So,
okay.
It's like my gut says cross the road.
Whatever
freaky
speaks
guy
to you.
Coming towards you.
Whatever speaks to you.
The butt, the gut. I'm like, I'll do that. I don't know
mind,
why.
Whatever it is. The heart.
Listen to your butt. That's the moral of the story.
Oh, man.
What's happening with you?
Well, I am doing a lot of thinking of product ideas. I want to create something, just outside of company and corporate and structure and everything else. I want to create something. I'm poor at coding. I can't code to save my life, but I can mock up some stuff and I can think of some product ideas like I do with, the program we've got with state and with some other things. So I want to do something like that. So I'm looking to create something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to find something. So that has me excited.
Very exciting. So you're feeling ambitious these days.
I am. I really am.
It's like the creative juices are flowing for you. I can see it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They are. They're going crazy right now.
So, what was also kind of cool was your talk that you did.
Thank you.
Was it last week?
It was last week, yes.
I was so impressed by the number of people that came out, first of all.
Yeah, we had a
I'm
good
not to say
showing.
that I didn't expect a lot of people, because I did. But, people sign up and then they don't show up.
Sure.
That's just human nature. But it was, and I was there, support, of course. Brought my husband.
Yes.
And
Poor Eric.
Poor Eric. But he enjoyed it as well.
Good.
And I liked the audience participation. You had a lot of good questions.
Yeah, we did.
And you were very engaging, and you were very enthusiastic, and you had high energy. So I was very proud of you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was very nice to be able to do that. And I did it again at the product camp on the Saturday. That was good. A little bit smaller, but it was a bigger crowd. It was more product centric folks. And we had a good discussion in that. So we had a smaller audience, but we had more discussion. So it was good on that side.
So does that make you feel like you want to do more?
Yes.
You want to put together more presentations and talk to more people and get on? Yeah.
Again,
awesome.
that's that same type of thing is I want to create something. I want to keep going, keep this momentum going and do something, feel productive.
It's like the domino effect. One domino drops and then the rest of them go.
Yeah. So I did that. We did that conference, or I did that conference on Saturday. And then we both went to the Tri-Agile conference.
We did.
Last Thursday. Mm-hmm. And that was very good. 480 people, I think, is what they said.
They sold out.
Yeah, they did.
I saw someone posted on LinkedIn that they had sold out and there weren't any tickets left.
That was crazy good. So it was very, very good. And that's what we want to talk about. The bulk of the things that we want to, news related items or articles, was about the things that we heard at the conference and things that we liked and things that we were kind of questioning. And, it was very good to see a lot of people there. Some people I had worked with before, including you.
Yes.
And a lot of good topics and a lot of good information. So what was the thing that you kind of liked more than anything?
I have to tell you, the keynote speaker, David Hussman.
Yeah.
He blew my mind.
Yeah.
He was mind blowing.
Very
First
good.
of all, he's so eloquent.
Yeah.
And he's funny.
He's a rock star.
He's a rock star.
Literally a rock star.
What was the name of his band? Something Raider?
It was some 80s hair band.
Something Raider. I can't quite remember because we Googled
Skull
him later.
Raider or something.
Skull Raider.
Sorry, David. We got your band's name.
But I think what stood, there were so many, I took notes galore when he was talking just because I found him so engaging and awesome. But he did, his keynote topic was how to build the wrong thing faster and learn from it. Mm-hmm. And a couple of things he talked about, which I thought was great, was he kept talking about how you don't do Agile. You do the dishes, but you don't do Agile, you practice Agile. And I thought that was,
agile.
you are Agile. I thought that was a really cool thing for him to say. He also talked about investing. What's my next best investment? Mm-hmm. Certain versus uncertain, and having the ability to kind of flow, being dynamic. I just thought he was awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And that's something that whole failure thing, I've written a couple times about that, you shouldn't be afraid to fail. You should be encouraged to fail. I've been fascinated with Elon Musk lately, the guy who started PayPal and SpaceX and Tesla and everything else. They've been trying to land first stage rockets on a barge out in the middle of the ocean, land a rocket vertically, right? Insane, complicated thing. They've done it. Now they're trying to do it on an ocean or on a barge in the ocean. Insanely difficult prospect to do. They've failed a lot of times, and they put their videos out, but they're getting all this data. And he set out a tweet or something when they tried to do it last week that this has a 50% chance of failure. We expect this to fail, but we're going to learn a lot from this. And by the end of the year, we expect to be at an 80% success. I love that attitude. He had a quote that I'm trying to verify that if you're not, he says failure is an option here. If you're not failing, you're not innovating. And we want people to innovate. So we expect you to fail. I love that attitude. And that's a lot what David talked about too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you? What was your topics?
I liked Andy Hunt's at the end. So Andy had a keynote on a methodology called GROWS. And it's not an agile thing, and it's just a way to learn, and a way to get in a good mindset for learning and understanding that there are people at different levels than you that are learning. And I really like that. There's some links out there and some ideas they have that I'll have to check out. So.
He was connected to Jared Richardson. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Because I went to Jared's session and it was on, it was called It's Not Working, a Manager and Executive's Guide to Managing Teams.
Right.
And he also talked about GROWS. And he talked about, rhythm and starting from step one, and then you become an expert. So he touched on it a little bit, and I think Andy kind of wrapped it up at the end.
Yeah, but it was a very good conference. A lot of presentations are out there. There was one thing I heard. There was one thing. There was a few things I heard that were kind of made me question a few things. But one thing I definitely wanted to say is that at the product camp, I heard somebody say, when you're averaging points, as a product or a product manager. You're averaging points. Yeah. Don't ever average points. Don't do that. It's one thing that SAFe, SAFe has this thing where they try to force all the teams into the same point structure so that, if you have 4 teams, they all have their 8s and it's the same size and it's the same. So they do that because of the way they do their portfolio planning and everything else. I've done it where whatever the teams had as their estimation method, whatever it is, I'll deal with it. That's part of my responsibility is to deal with that. But when somebody says average points between teams, so if you have 4 teams and one team's doing 30, and one team's doing 15 and 10 and 20 and you average them together and that's your velocity. No, it's not. Don't do that.
So you would let me understand.
Don't do that.
So let me just understand what they were trying to say.
Sure.
So if you have 4 teams, you add all the teams' points together and then you divide it by 4. And that becomes what?
That's
the velocity?
your velocity for the teams.
For the teams.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
That's wrong.
That's weird.
It's bad. It's bad practice, I will say. I will go as far as to say I don't do that.
I completely agree with you.
And there's a lot of themes in the other talks about what is agile and how do you know if you're agile enough or, this continuum of I do 0% agile, I'm not agile, and I'm 100%, I do all these things. I should be agile. Am I agile? There's a lot of talk about if you do this, you're agile. If you don't do this, you're not agile, which, you can go back and forth and people were making cases that, there are some things you should do and to be agile. There's some things you shouldn't do to call yourself agile. A lot of discussion around that. There was 2 articles that I really liked in relation to that. One is by Daniel Gullo, and he says in an article called "Agile is Not for You," which I like the concept of because it specifically states if you're not going to do these things, then you don't do Agile. Don't even try it because you're not going to be successful. So just keep doing what you're doing and try some practices, try some things, but don't call yourself agile and don't think that you're going to be agile.
I'm kind of jumping up and down in my seat a little
bit.
I see that. I'm keeping my hands to myself so I don't hit the mic. But they talked a lot about, I kept hearing agile transformation.
Yes.
And it was the first time I've even heard that terminology, and it was being used by multiple people across the board that day.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you're saying. It's like, okay, well, if you're using 2 or 3 steps agile, you're still agile. If you're doing everything agile, you're agile. So it's like, I guess I have like an all or none mentality the way you do.
Yeah.
You can't have a stand up and stories and call yourself agile.
Well, and the big thing was somebody was saying, and I think it was Andy, and I think it was some other people were saying it's kind of the same thing, is that Scrum, by the book Scrum, is not agile because it's prescriptive. It's not, you don't learn things. And the way I come at this is there are some good practices that you can do to be agile. There are some ways that you can practice agility as a concept back to the manifesto, back to the values, the 4 values that they put. And if you're doing those 4 values, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to be agile and you're going to be successful. You don't have to have estimates on stories. You don't have to do, God forbid, you don't have to do continuous integration, right? You should. I think most people would say, and he gave one example of there's 10% of people that don't use source control in their development environments. That's just crazy. That's not an agile thing. That's just bad practice. But there are certain things that you need, a certain mindset and certain things you need to do in order to say that you're practicing agile. Back to David's point, don't do agile. Become agile. I am agile. Huzzah! But I think that was an interesting topic. And Mike Cottenmeyer has a good article I'll link to that he has 3 specific things that he says you should do to be agile. One is have your teams. One is have your backlogs. And one is produce working software at the end of every iteration. If you can do those 3 things, then you can call yourself agile or you can be agile. And I think that's valid. Everything else is up for negotiation. It really depends on the maturity of your team. If your team doesn't need to estimate points because they're so good that they're just producing software, don't make them estimate. If they're doing the right things for the right reasons, let them keep going. Mm-hmm. But if they're not, that's when you need to come back and get a little bit more disciplined, I think is the correct word to use, about your processes and your methodologies. And that's where you start to get into more formal Scrum and more formal things for everybody. But it's really a spectrum there. And to say that you're not agile because you don't do this, who's to say?
I was just looking through my notes because there was something that somebody said that I completely disagreed with.
There was somebody who said that they don't do retrospectives because their team members aren't comfortable with speaking with each other. And to that I said, that's one of those barriers to entry, right? And Bob's talked about that. And like I said, Daniel's talked about that these are the things you need to do. These are the minimum things. It's not a complete list. It's not 100 things you have to do to be agile. It's 5 or 6. And that's where I come in to say, yeah, we should do these things. And when I try to do that in my own projects, these are the things, these are the guide rails we're going to put in place for a project. And this is going to get us to agility. This is going to make us agile or allow us to be agile. And it's the minimum thing. And when people say, I don't want to do that, then you're not going to be agile. I mean, it's not a big thing, right? It's you either are or you aren't. So,
one person said, yes, let me confirm what you just said. I agree with you. Correct.
Okay, good.
I know. I don't like for you just to talk to me, not to say anything like I'm completely ignoring you. I hear you. She said to have story points being time-based.
Okay.
And I don't agree with that.
No, I would. To me, points are complexity, or if anything, they're complexity. Maybe a little bit of effort, but effort is bad to put into a point for me. Hours go into tasks, right? When the team does that.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's silly. I mean, what are you going to say? This can take 3 days, therefore it's 3 points.
Yeah, no.
I didn't agree with that at all.
That gets into math and that gets into traditional stuff that I don't.
You have to break out the calculator.
Or you let them do that and then they start, don't do that.
I agree. Was there anything else that you disagreed with?
No, that was the big thing. It was that theme running through is if you do this, you're agile, or if you don't do that, you're not agile. And it really depends. It depends on your mindset. It depends on your culture. It depends on what your end goal is, and it depends on what you're producing at the end of the iteration, really.
I think the word agile, people just get hung up on it.
They do. It's because there's a big A agile, right? That's what people are selling. This is the big A. This is what we're selling. We're pushing agile. Yay, agile.
Right.
But little a agile is the actual values. It's the values and the principles, right? That's what you're driving toward. You're not driving toward the methodology. We use Scrum. We like Kanban. We like Flow, Lean, everything else. You're driving toward those values and using whatever process you can based on your team's and your business's maturity.
Amen, brother.
I'm gesturing
awkward. I know.
I'm going to knock the rabbit off.
Keep your hands to yourself there. Yeah, don't touch the rabbit.
Sorry. So I think that's enough for that topic. Sorry. I knew that was going to go long, though.
Yes.
Because there was a lot.
I told you don't talk so much.
Well, I'm sorry. But we are going to talk about our topic today, which is...
Your favorite topic.
It is my favorite of the sprint or the Scrum Scrum meetings, the demo, the sprint review. So yeah, I like this one because it goes back to that one of those core agile values, which is working software is your primary measure of progress. So every iteration we show working software. And I think that's what makes us agile. That's what makes us deliver quality software. And I really like that. So yeah, so the demo or the review, and people have different ideas of what they want to call it. It's a demo, it's a review. It's basically where you show your stuff and you get feedback on it, some comments, some quick ideas. So to me, it is the most important meeting because it does show that working software. It does show that we've done something, we've completed something, we're done, right?
Done.
The team has finished it. They get to show it off. We get to have that conversation and that feedback, and then we can change things. So we inspect and adapt that big idea that whatever we're going to do, we're going to keep building on it. So I like that.
I think what's cool about this meeting is this is the one where we can be proud and show off the team's accomplishments. Mm-hmm. So this is the, ooh, look what we did meeting.
Yeah.
And we don't really get a chance to do that very often. So it's important that we take advantage of it the way we have it. So like you said, these are the things that are done from the sprint. Also known as ready for the release. In terms of the overall feel of the demo, we want it to be smooth and natural. So what we don't want is for it to be stuffy and uncomfortable at all, because that's just awkward for everyone. And I think that the audience should feel as if they're attending almost a choreographed show. focused solely on the value of the work that we delivered.
Yeah. I really look at it as a show. It is a production. It is your chance to shine, your team's chance to shine, the opportunity to go, look at this fantastic thing that we've done. Isn't it great? Don't you want to see more of it? The answer should be yes.
Yes, show us more.
Yes,
it's so wonderful.
absolutely.
And what you want is for them to smile and nod their heads and clap their hands and be very excited.
I tell you, the first demo I ever did, I got applause.
Aw, that's
Yeah,
nice.
first demo, unexpected applause. And it was polite.
Oh, like a golfer's clap applause?
It was two people sitting in a room, and I did the demo, and we finished. And they said, "Oh, wow," because it was unexpected. They didn't realize what they were going to get, and it was like, wow, they were impressed.
That's so cute.
And I have never gotten it since. I keep waiting, but that was fantastic. That was enough to go, you know what? That one time, all those many years ago, somebody got excited. I want that. I keep driving to that.
You're chasing the clap.
Yeah. Just clap for me. That's fine. That's all I ask. I don't ask for the world. Just a clap.
Just a clap. Just a small clap.
But we do this show. I'm going to call it a show. We do the demo, at the end of every iteration. So whatever, if we're doing a 2-week, if we're doing a 4-week, whatever we're doing, if you're doing Kanban or lean, and just whenever you have enough to show, I like to keep these things regularly scheduled just because it's a pattern at that point. It's a cadence. So the customers and your team knows every day or every 2 weeks or every whatever, we're going to show what we got and it's going to work. So it's same bat time, same bat channel type thing. Don't skip this. Don't ever skip your demo. So even if you're doing a tech sprint or even if you're doing a sprint 0, there is value in what you're doing. There's value in what your team has figured out, or there's value in what the team has figured out over that last iteration. Show that, share that, let somebody else know about it, because they should see the result of your work.
I think that's a really important point because we tend to get caught up in what's sexy and what we can show off. And when we do have a hardening sprint or something that's based on technical debt, it's not sexy to show off something new that you built in the architecture or, whatever else. And it's hard to demo that kind of thing.
It is, but it's still, the big thing is this is work that we did. This is what we spent 2 weeks on. Or the last iteration on. This is what we spent your money, Mr. Business Person, on. This is what we did. Do you find value in this? Do you find value in these technical things? Do you find value in these back-end systems, or do you find value in, whatever screens we built for you? Can you do something with this? Can you make money with this now? If you can, great, go do it. Mm-hmm. Or let's figure out a way to make you do it. If you can't, then let's figure out why. Or let you see that this will enable us to do the next thing that's important that will allow you to do that.
Yes. I'm definitely saying it's valuable. I just think from a PO perspective, it can be challenging.
It can, absolutely.
So we just have to figure out ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. So in terms of preparation, the content, starts in sprint planning. It's focused on the goal and the theme. The meeting preparation, we want to do that early. So we want to confirm that we have something to demo from, like a laptop or an iPad, and that we have access to set up the WebEx or a GoToMeeting or whatever it is.
Yeah, again, this is the show. So the show, when you go into a movie theater and the movie's supposed to start at 7:20 and the curtain comes back, that's not when you see the guys start loading the projector and everything else. That's when the show starts. So if your demo is at 9:00, 9:01, man, go.
Exactly.
No matter who's there, just go.
And I think that's a really good point. I'm used to, I'll go in a half an hour before and just make sure everything is set up because I don't want to be embarrassed. I feel like it is my show. I'm the one putting on the show.
Right.
And I want to make sure that it does work correctly and there's no weird things I'm going to come against. So during the demo itself, I usually start with telling the story from a user perspective as opposed to just showing the application how it functions.
Right. Yeah, you definitely go through the story that you're showing and why somebody cares about that. So you do it from the story perspective, you do it from the user and the goal of that story.
Right. And that helps them to not only understand what was developed, but it also helps them understand what value it served.
Right. Yeah, the preparation time for this, it's not more than an hour or two preparation time. So your goal and your themes and everything else should flow into that. So don't spend too much time on your prep work, but do enough to where you can have a good show.
And I think too, we want to keep the story steps short and clear. So we don't want to overwhelm the group with little tiny details that take away from what the story is.
Right. One of the things I always like to do is so let's say I have 5 stories in a sprint, and that's what we're going to show. Then how do those 5 fit together? What story am I trying to tell through those 5 stories? So what's the flow through those stories? How can I link them together? So if a story was the first priority in the sprint and that's what the team worked on, maybe that's the one I tell third because maybe there's some buildup to lead into that story. So you have to figure out how to weave these things together, and that takes a little bit of trial and error. It takes a little bit of patience, but you can find that common theme, especially if you planned it correctly. Then you know what you're going to show as you go, and your demos can flow. I'm rhyming, and I don't know why.
So it's essentially communicating the process, the flow. Don't you know?
Are you going to accuse me of being vanilla ice again?
I may. Okay. Another thing I always do before this meeting is I do a dry run. So that minimizes surprises, right? So now I know that when I go in, I'm not going to get a 500 error, for example, when I click on a certain button. And then the last thing, if you're lucky enough to have a scrum master, then they should be the ones that are responsible for the meeting logistics. So scheduling the room, sending out the invites, etc.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that need to occur prior to the demo being held.
Yep. And I've had 2 different ways to do this, and I'm sure there's many more, but I've done 2 different ways of performing demos. One is that the team does it. So the team, the developers, the testers, they demonstrate the stories. That's what most people would say. That's what you should do. And that works when you have teams and customers and everything else. The point where that didn't work was when I had a lot of different teams and our demos took 2 hours because we had 8 teams. How do you split that up? Well, you give a little bit of time for each team, but your business and your customers probably won't sit through that, which is the situation that I had. Would have liked for them to, don't think they could have made it. But what we did, it was important for the teams to see what each other was doing. So we did the big 2-hour demo. And then the next day, I took that 2 hours, I condensed it down to 15 minutes, which was a chore, and then gave that to the business with the team in attendance so that they could see and hear the feedback from the customer. But it was a much more business focused demo than technical discussion or delivery with all the teams. And good or bad, that's what we did. And it worked. So.
And I love how the teams were engaged in that second demo as well, so they can listen to the feedback from the business users.
Yep.
A lot of the times they feel kind of siloed. So it's nice to pull them in and have them be involved in the process.
Right. So we show accepted stories in the demo, only work that's been accepted. There's debate about whether you should show things that were not completed. I would normally not show something that's completed unless it was either A, critical, or B, interesting enough to talk about why it didn't get completed. So if there's a screen or if there's a report or something you were working on and you got halfway through it and something blew up, talk about why it blew up. It's not great, but it happened and it's work that was being tried and it was a big part of your sprint. If it was a 1-point story or something small, then yeah, maybe not. But if it's a big story, then maybe I would talk about it. So it all depends on your context.
Sure.
Don't show screenshots.
That's not a demo.
No, it's not a demo.
Here's a demo. Oh, look at the picture.
Yeah, you're demoing working software, not screenshots or reports, unless that was your output. If your output was a report like a research spike or something else, then yeah, show that. But don't, if you're building a website or you're doing something useful, show it working. Don't just show how it could work.
Right. Agreed.
And this is not, so don't let any product managers or project managers try to take this over as a status call. That's not what this is. This is very specifically for the team and the customers. Yeah. So one of the things I always like to start with, is to talk about the stories that we're going to work on or the stories that we're going to demo, and then how that fits into the bigger picture that we're working on. If we're working on a release, then this is sprint 2 of 4 in this release, and this is how this fits in. To go through that. If we had stretch stories, great, let's show those. If we didn't, like I said, if we missed one, we can talk about that.
Do you actually specify that this work that we done was a stretch? I mean, did the business care, or do they even know what that means?
That's a good question. I think it would depend a lot on what they would view that as. If they would view that as, ooh, we get stretch every time, then no, I wouldn't. If they would view it as, oh, that's really cool, then yeah, I would. So it depends on the context of the customers and the business and how they would take that. I would like to. Let me say it like that. I would like to say that this was a stretch, that we got all the work done and we stretched into this story.
I guess it depends on how you phrase it, because you can also say, this is what we committed to, but we were able to also include this as well.
Right.
Instead of using the word stretch.
Yeah, that's true. So the team, the customers, management, everybody, this meeting is open to anybody who wants to attend. So if you've got other teams that are working on different products, or you've got your VP of sales that wants to come in and look at your demo, let them. It's great that they're there. Customers, anybody who wants to see this. I always try to see when I can go to other teams' demo just to see what other teams are working on, see how they do their demos. But yeah, it's open to anybody and everybody. And we show everything. So any tests, documents, research spikes, whatever we did during the sprint, that's what we show. And as a product owner, I'm always sitting back with a note card, taking notes, making, any questions that came up, I'll take a note of those. Comments, new ideas. I'm always interested to hear. And that's what we're looking for, right? That feedback. So when somebody says something that sparks an idea, ooh, that's a good idea. I'll write that down. Yeah. And then any changes that we need to make to the next sprint. So if we did something right and, we don't need another story after that, but I'd already planned one, then I'll know to take it off. Or if we miss something or there's a higher priority coming in, then I need to know I need to change that. So yeah, any notes that I need to take. We want to make sure we're not doing this on dev machines. Don't do that.
Please don't.
Working software, good. Working software on a environment that's not supposed to be a dev environment.
Right. We have a demo environment that we use.
That's a good idea. Demo environment, SIT environment. If you have to, do it in a QA environment. Anything but a dev machine, anything to get away from the it works on my machine phenomenon, which is horrible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that we shouldn't be using dev or even QA machines, because they could just be fraught with problems.
Yeah. As the team is demoing, or if you're demoing something, if it takes a few minutes to run, so obviously we're trying to keep the time kind of compact and keep the story flowing. So if something is going to take a few minutes to run, then start the process. So if you're doing an export or you're showing how data comes through the system, start that process up, then talk about the story as this thing is running in the background. And then by the time, hopefully, you've timed it out so where when you finish talking, the software is finished working and you can see the result, so that you're not sitting there staring at a blank screen.
Stale, dead air.
Yeah.
I like to have a couple different conversation starters next to me. Just
Really?
random things that I can talk to people about.
Like what?
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Like, hey, Bob, how's the wife and kids?
Okay.
Did anybody go to the Agile conference last week? I don't know. Just something, because it gets very uncomfortable and awkward if there's a long silence.
Yeah.
So a couple extra things on this. We do want to show upcoming stories and sprints. I think what that does is it whets the appetite of the stakeholders and it gives them something to look forward to.
Yeah. Next sprint, we're doing this.
Ooh,
Isn't
aren't you
that
excited?
interesting? Yeah.
Right. So at that point, it's also a good time to raise any sort of impediments to further provide transparency into the project. So in addition to that, I think Q&A is encouraged, but it's our job as POs to protect the session from veering off into Never Never Land. And that tends to happen a lot.
Yeah, it does. When people ask questions about the work that you've done or the work that you are going to do, that's fine. When they start, if they want to have a larger technical discussion about something, why you architected it that way or why that feature was done that way, those are fine conversations to make note of, to have later, but it's not the point of your demo.
And this is our chance to be transparent about our status and to be open and to be honest. So, I think it's important to have that communication. And the last thing I want to mention, Cory, is that all teams demo, not just one.
Right.
right? So I think we need to make sure that multiple teams are doing this.
Yeah. And if you have multiple teams, like I said, it's one of these things where if you have, so let's say you have a bigger ecosystem where you have 20 teams, right? How do 20 teams demo something to each other? Well, you can't put them in one meeting. So I know there's different groups, and some of them have demos on one day, some of them have demos on the next day, and they don't necessarily need to go, but somebody usually does. If you have 2 or 3 teams, then it's kind of easier to manage. I know when I recently had 2 teams, we split it up. It was a 30-minute window for one team and a 30-minute window for the next team. And anybody who wanted to be there could be there, just so you knew when you were going to see your things from all the teams.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I want to make sure that the teams don't get into the habit of scripting what they're going to say. This is a conversation. This is the ability to say, hey, here's what we did. It's a quick 5-10 minute story, maybe 10 minutes for bigger stories. But it's a conversation. It's not today we worked on story 4623 that did this. And today I will show you how to do story 4263.
Have you seen that? I've never seen that.
Yes. I when they come in with notes and they're bullet pointed and that's a script. They're reading from a script. Just talk. It's a presentation, right? Some people are introverts and they don't like talking, especially the customers who, God forbid, could critique their work or say something negative about it. But it's their way of speaking and they're not comfortable. So you have to make them comfortable. What makes them comfortable sometimes is a script that they can read.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I think scripts are important. As you know, I write down everything. I have notes. I have notes galore for everything.
You do.
Now, I don't read them word for word, but I have them as reference in order to make sure that I am communicating what I'm setting out to communicate and that it makes sense and that it flows correctly.
Yeah. And having a reference is fine. And that's why I like a bullet point list. So if you're talking about a story, have the story, have the acceptance criteria, have the bullet points that you want to hit in that story, but don't have a paragraph that you're going to read on the phone. That's what I'm saying scripted.
And then on top of that, we also don't want to refer to stories as, and you've pointed this out before, as numbers.
Yes.
Story number 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right.
So afterwards, after the demo, you cheer.
Yay!
You get a little applause. You maybe have a cookie, because who doesn't like cookies? And then we open it up, to the environment that we've deployed this on, ideally to the customers. So here's what we built. We're showing it to you now. It's on this environment. Go play with it. Go give us your feedback. If you can release it, even better. But if you can't, if you're in an environment where you got to stage these things, then whatever environment you can stage this to get them to play with it, turn them loose and talk to them the next day as they're walking through it. So yeah, that's the best thing. So in Heinrich's book, Lean from the Trenches, he has some great tips on demos. So we want to make it a show, but he wants it to be undramatic. He wants it to be a big effort, but he wants it to be smooth. And I like that. So the team gets credit for their accomplishment. They feel good, right? The team should feel good about what they've done in a demo. They should go, yeah, that was cool what we did. Absolutely right. It was. You should feel good about that and you should look forward to the next one. How can we do this again? That's a great feeling. Other people learn what your team is doing. Anybody in the company, your director could come down, your sales guy could come down, a developer from a team that maybe wants to work with you could come over and go, hey, what are you guys doing? That looks pretty cool. I might like to join you. Sure. The demo should attract vital feedback from stakeholders. That rocks. That is a good thing that you guys did. Or what the hell were you thinking? Why did you do it that way? Well, because either we didn't know or we didn't. But whatever the case is, you get that feedback. You get that information back from your stakeholders. And the demo should be a social event where teams can interact with each other and discuss their work. Same thing, right? If you've got multiple teams and the teams aren't working together, but they can see each other, they're going to see each other during the day, but if they can see what they're working on and the value that it brings, that might be something they want to leverage. And that's really valuable too.
I think the challenge with a lot of teams is, and you touched on it earlier, is there's a lot of introverts in software development. So it's it may be uncomfortable for them to share and to be exposed and to, communicate with people they don't typically talk to. So I've seen a lot of developers kind of shy away from demos and they avoid them and, I'm very busy, I have work to do. But we really need to keep them engaged and show them the importance of attending.
Yes, absolutely. There was a few questions that I put in here just because there were interesting articles that talked about Annie patterns of the sprint review meeting and what to do if you're not getting stakeholders that attend or are involved in your demos. Part of that's education. Part of that's on you to remind them that this is important. And part of it is showing them stuff so they get value out of it. If they don't get value out of this meeting, if your stakeholders don't get a value out of this meeting, they're not going to come. They don't care. You're not giving them anything. If you start giving them things and start proving to them, you can give this to them in an environment where they can go play with it. That's valuable. That should be valuable to somebody on their side. And that gets them coming back. But if they're not getting value out of it, you got to find out why. If they're not getting value out of it, or if they're not be able to attend because of a scheduling thing, I've recorded a demo before and sent it to them because the guy that I was supposed to do this for, very rarely showed up. He's very busy, very high rank in the organization. And I thought, what better way to do this than to give him, obviously it would be better if he was there attending. But if he couldn't, the next best thing I could do is give him an on-demand video to view this.
That's what we do. We record all of our demos.
Yeah.
And we post them.
Do you get feedback from them?
No.
Well, that's not great.
Our demos are rather long. So we've got 4 teams demoing at once.
Yeah.
And, we have multiple demos throughout the week because we do have 17 teams. So, I get feedback here and there, but it's usually on the side.
Yeah.
A little slide comment, a little email, that kind of a thing.
Okay. So we'll put a link to those because they are interesting to read, to think about, and maybe we'll pull up some questions for that later. So
do you feel like you were able to express everything you want to express about demos?
I don't know. I feel like...
Wait, there's more.
I could talk for another 2 hours about demos. Mm-hmm. No, I really could. Because it is the point where you say, this is what we did. This is why we're doing the things we're doing, is to give you this. And here it is. And
this is how awesome we are.
Rocket. Herbie Hancock. Rocket.
Nope.
No? Oh.
Not at all.
All right, fine. Jeez.
All right, Cory. So as always, we want to get feedback from you, our listeners, with any questions you may have in the PO space, problems you're facing, sharing good ideas for improvement, or any issues with the show itself.
Yes, you can find us online at deliveritcast.com, on Twitter at deliveritcast, and you can email us at deliveritcast@gmail.com.
We don't have a question of the week,
We don't have a question of the week, but I think that's okay because I think we talked a lot about the conferences and the information that's there, and I think that was valuable. So if you have a question, please shoot it over to us.
Please do. We love questions.
Let us know. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Now it's time for our lovely disclaimer.
Disclaimer time.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. These words are our own, and they're not endorsed or representative of any company or organization. But again, hit me up if you want to. You can find me.
And me too. Don't forget about me.
Yeah. You can find me online at iscorybryant on Twitter or infrequently blogging at don'tyellatme.wordpress.com.
And as always, I can be reached through the show contact info.
And we just delivered episode 5. It was a good show. That's right. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you join us next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.